MiWeek is on Mackinac Island. We'll take you inside the Grand Hotel for the Detroit Regional Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference. Politics, education, regional transit, the future of mobility, trust, and where Michigan is headed. Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson join me. I'm Christy McDonald. MiWeek from Mackinac is coming up.
Support for MiWeek at the Mackinac Policy Conference is brought to you by Masco Corporation Foundation, DTE Energy Foundation, ITC Holdings Corporation, Delta, and by...
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Merillat cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.
Hi, and welcome to MiWeek from the Grand Hotel. I'm Christy McDonald. We are on Mackinac Island, the site of the Detroit Regional Chamber's Mackinac Policy Conference, and we are meeting with all sorts of business leaders, politicians, educators, and talking about the future of Michigan. We have a big show coming up for you. Nolan Finley and Stephen Henderson will join me. We'll be talking about the biggest issues facing the state and the ones taking up the most conversations here on the island. Plus, you'll hear from Detroit Mayor Mike Duggan and DPSCD Superintendent Dr. Nikolai Vitti. Also, here at Detroit Public TV, we have an announcement we'd like to share with you. And no visit to the island is complete without the guys from Under the Radar Michigan. It's all coming up. We have a lot to get to. But first, here's a little bit of a perspective on where we are in Michigan right now. This election year, Michigan finds itself getting ready for a new governor and leadership in Lansing that will have to tackle big issues like improving K-12 education, roads and bridges, and growing business and job opportunities statewide. The goal, to make Michigan a top 10 state. While there is growth for entrepreneurs, more business investment, and higher home values, there is slow population growth and a vast gap between jobs and skilled workers.
We're worried about the income levels because, as long as the income levels aren't moving up to the degree they should be, and we're still about $10,000 short per person compared to top 10 states, people aren't going to ever feel as good as we'd like them to feel about their futures.
That has put a lot of focus on a skilled workforce, college readiness, and Michigan's K-12 system. Michigan had the largest drop in third-grade reading levels compared to 11 similar states over the past 3 years. Fourth-grade reading and math scores don't fare much better. There is more pressure on state leaders to agree on strategies for improvement.
It's been a long time since public education was a top priority in the state, and we're not going to improve if we don't focus on it.
Improvement and change to schools, roads, cities, or workforce programs will take funding, either more of it or shifted in different ways. Not easy decisions on where that money will come from or how it will be spent.
The voters, not just in Michigan but across the country, are still very much in an anti-government, anti-tax mode, and it's going to be difficult to figure out how we thread the needle to get the dollars that we're going to need as a state and as a city to invest in the things that we need to do to be successful.
In Detroit, Mayor Mike Duggan is starting his second term. The city is out of state financial oversight. Downtown development is steady. The riverfront is expanding with a dramatic new design to the west. There is increased focus on neighborhoods with funding to attract business and opportunity for residents.
Housing, affordable and livable.
Crime and public safety continues to be a challenge for Detroit police as well as families.
Our kids are afraid of being killed on the way to school or home from school. This is a whole different atmosphere.
The Detroit Public Schools Community District is finishing up its first school year with new Superintendent Nikolai Vitti. He has implemented a new strategic plan, worked with teachers, is aiming for more arts in the classroom, and building trust with parents and kids.
years of mismanagement, not engaging the community authentically, has led to deserts in this community in particular.
In Southeast Michigan, the idea of regional transit is still being hotly debated. Regional leaders are divided, and a new RTA plan is being shopped around to voters.
I think we need regional transit. I think we've got to be prepared to pay the price for it.
The elections this year will be pivotal. Term limits will ensure new legislators next January who will have to get up to speed quickly on what the state faces, and a new governor who will help set the agenda and the tone. So look who I found on the porch of the Grand Hotel. My week contributors, Nolan Finley of the Detroit News, Stephen Henderson of WDET Radio. What do you think, guys? Beautiful to stand out here on the porch of the Grand Hotel.
No place better, right?
I know it, I know it.
You're cold, but I'm not.
I know, I have to say, I put a sweatshirt on over my dress, I confess. It's a little chilly out here. All right, but let's get to the heart of it and what people are really talking about up on the island this year at the conference, aside from the agenda items, Nolan.
Well, obviously, people are talking about transit. We've known that would be a dominant discussion. I'm more curious about what people aren't talking about, and that's politics. I don't hear a whole lot of prognosticating about the political races. This is the biggest political year we've had in 8 years in terms of all the offices being up for grabs and on the ballot. I see the candidates walking everywhere.
Yeah, they're circulating about.
Shaking hands, but that does, unlike any other year of this magnitude, I don't see the same.
They're saving
maybe it's just still first day.
Our debate tomorrow night.
That's right, Thursday night, the debate.
Don't seem to be much excitement about these elections. So.
All right, what do you think? So transit's on the table. People have been talking about that a lot, actually.
Yeah, no, and I had a conversation with the mayor this morning, Mike Duggan, and he was pretty pointed about his frustration with Brooks Patterson and Mark Hackle.
Yeah.
I mean, he basically said, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know what else they think they need to see how important this is. He pointed to the leadership that the business community is showing in trying to get this going. He says that's their constituency. Why aren't they paying any mind to that?
Well, I talked to Mark Hackle this morning as well, and he said, that's fine for them, but for people in Macomb, we overwhelmingly shot down RTA 2 years ago. The SMART system works for us, and we're fine where we are in Macomb County. Yeah. And he says it's dead.
It is dead, and I get the sense that it's also become very personal. I worry that we're seeing sort of return to the regional divides we haven't seen since the Coleman Young years. You've got Hackle last night talking to us about the cannibalization of the suburbs to fill the office buildings in Detroit. That's been an ongoing theme of Brooks Patterson, the mayor, on my radio show this morning.
And we're gonna play that in just a couple of minutes too.
We'll get to that then.
Yeah.
You get that sense of a growing resentment and people retreating back to protecting their own interests rather than acting in concert.
So that makes me say the next big decision or the next big something that's on the table, you've kind of lost a little bit of relationship here.
I think you've lost a lot, and there's some real bitter irony in the idea of Mark Hackle or Brooks Patterson talking about cannibalization of their jobs into the city. Those suburbs in both counties were created by cannibalizing things out of Detroit, subsidizing at the federal and the state and the local level, the building and the infrastructure out there, and the idea that now it's not okay for Detroit to benefit from that same equation is silly. But again, we've got to get past the idea that it's a win for somebody and a loss for someone else. The zero-sum nature of these discussions is not regional.
But in reality, it is a zero-sum game. As long as this region isn't growing as a whole, as long as we're not adding new people from the outside, we are. If one place grows, someplace else has to shrink. Yeah. We need to bring in more jobs, more people from the outside.
All right, but let's talk about this. You're not going to bring in more jobs and more people from the outside if you don't have a cohesive region. Right. We saw Amazon took a view from the top, and they didn't choose us. The Army, they didn't choose to be here.
But right now we are shifting pieces around throughout the region. We need to be adding pieces. And we're not anywhere near that point yet.
Another thing people are talking about, workforce development. This kind of dovetails everything that we're talking about in terms of keeping talent here, training talent in different ways as well. A lot of conversation about that.
Yeah, well, and yesterday I moderated a panel about access, right? Higher ed access. And part of what we talked about is that the idea has to be 4-year college, 2-year college, or a skill, a trade, right? Nobody can go through from K to 12 and just decide,
without knowing something.
Yeah, right. They've got to have some sort of enrichment and a certificate, right? Completion. Not just that you went, but that you earned a degree or a skill, and that leads to employment.
So, but if you're looking at businesses who are relocating to the area or to Michigan, they're still putting a higher premium on people with a college level education are going to end up earning more and, down the line. So do you find the divide, Nolan, still exists between skilled trades and higher ed? Or are you seeing more coming together?
I think there's more skilled trades in higher ed on one side and the unskilled, people who either leave high school or just graduate from high school on the others. I think when you talk about now a higher training, it includes skilled trades, it includes college degrees. It can, because some of these professions pay more than professions with college degrees. So I think you take it as a whole, and as Steve said, you've got to leave your education experience knowing how to do something you can make money with.
Okay. All right. Well, you talked to Mayor Mike Duggan. We said earlier this morning on your radio show about transit. Let's go ahead and take a look at that.
This conference opened up with the news from Macomb County Executive Mark Hackel saying that, in his view, the RTA is dead. The Regional Transit Authority is dead. And I know that disappoints you as somebody who considers the RTA and regional transit vital to the city, vital to the region.
There's some things I don't understand, but the RTA legislation passed in 2012. I wasn't the mayor. Warren Evans wasn't the county executive. Mark Hackel and Brooks Patterson went to Lansing, testified, and passed that bill the way they wanted it. And now that I think we have a plan that has a very real chance of passing, they don't want to let the voters vote on it. I don't have any explanation for why they're against their own bill, but it is what it is, and we're just going to keep doing what we're doing.
So, I mean, what do you think is going on there? What do you think the motivations are? Why aren't they supporting the RTA? I mean, we did come up here a few years ago, and everybody made a big deal about the fact that we've got agreement on a regional transit plan, and it never seems to have actually materialized.
You're going to have to ask them what their motives are. I can't get anything that makes any sense, but, people in the city know what's happening on DDOT. We've got a couple hundred new buses. We've added 1,500 trips a week last year, another 300 trips a week this year. We've got a large number of routes now with 24-hour service, whereas 3 or 4 years ago we didn't have any. We're going to keep building the DDOT system, and we've got more Detroiters working today than we've had in 17 years. And I think you're seeing some of the companies that are choosing to be in the city, I think, are in significant part because you can move around Detroit more easily than other places. So I can't explain why Oakland and Macomb are doing what they're doing. We remain the only major metropolitan area in the country where people don't agree on the need for transit. The business community is overwhelmingly supportive of this, and because they want to get people to work. I'm not sure why our colleagues in the North don't agree.
This has taken seems to have taken a rather personal, rather nasty turn. I was talking to Mark Hackel last night up at the stables, and he was talking about the pushback in the suburbs about all the focus now being on Detroit beyond transit. And Brooks Patterson, of course, famously in an interview with Charlie Duff, reportedly called you a creep. Has this become some bigger divide here, a personal break that we're seeing?
Warren and I have not said an unkind word about either Brooks or Hackel. If you can find one, I'd like to see it. But why is this? Well, 3 weeks ago, Microsoft moved 400 employees from Southfield into the city of Detroit. Okay. Last week, Tata Technologies announced they're moving 200 people from Novi into Detroit. Google is in the process of moving people from Birmingham into the city of Detroit. And for the many years when businesses and jobs were moving out of Detroit to the suburbs, they thought everything was fine. I think it's a great thing for the region that you have choices in Oakland County, Western Wayne County, Ann Arbor, and Detroit. But it doesn't appear that everybody agrees with it.
And so, how do you put things back together?
You know, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And if you're looking at the announcements, we got a bunch more coming. And my biggest thing now is to make sure, okay, it's going to be hard for Detroiters to get jobs in the suburbs. It's going to be hard for suburbanites to get to jobs in Detroit. That means we need to keep bringing the jobs back to the city, which we're doing. It means we need to keep building up the DDOT system. And, you know, we've got 10,000 housing units in design or under construction. There's a whole lot of people that if they can't be connected to their tablets and iPhones for a 30-minute ride on a bus, are going to choose to live by where they work. And so we have a clear strategy with or without Oakland County. My job right now is make sure Detroiters are trained for the jobs that are coming to the city, and we're working on that really hard.
Of course, a lot of people are talking about education on the island. Dr. Nikolai Vitti, who's the superintendent of Detroit Public Schools, he was here as well, and he talked about how his first year went. Dr. Vitti, it's good to see you. So this is almost a full year on the job.
That's right.
And so how would you assess where you are right now?
I think we've had a good, successful year defined as what are the problems, because there were many, and moving into what is the solution. So, for example, a lot of training with our teachers this year on the new standards, picked a new curriculum to implement next year, excited about implementing music and art in every school next year, having a guidance counselor in every school, a dean of discipline, rebuilding programs throughout the district. So I'm really looking forward to year 2, because I think the average parent and student is going to start to see more of the reform, where this year it was about engaging stakeholders about what the problem was and being transparent about that and engaging people about what the solution is. But next year it's really about seeing the reform, and I'm excited to visit schools next year to see the work that we've been doing for the past year.
Has a lot been processed as well, and just in terms of setting up how things are going to run at the district level?
Yeah, initially it was overwhelming regarding all of the inadequacies, from systems and processes to paying people, to inadequate curriculum and training, and just expectations. But as we move into year 2, some of that is being overcome with new initiatives, a budget that's actually aligned to a strategic plan. When we started, it was just being flooded with problems and issues, and I think we're starting to move ahead of that to actually becoming a more normal district. So I'm optimistic as we move into year 2.
When you circulate among a crowd up here at the Mackinac Policy Conference, do you think that people are starting to change their perception of what Detroit Public Schools are right now and what they can be?
Not yet. I think what the perception is that people are happy with the elected board, and they're happy with my selection, meaning, you know, we've had years of emergency managers that were largely political appointments, not educators, no track record as far as urban school reform. And I think policymakers and people generally here see a leader that has a track record, visionary, very specific about the reform. So I think there's a new sense of hope and optimism that we're going to get it right. But I don't think people feel that we've arrived, and nor do I think we've arrived. But I think there's optimism, and now some clarity on linking the hope with realistic change.
And when you talk about realistic change, what would you say that would be?
Well,
the actual execution of helping kids achieve. Is it looking at test scores, or?
Well, I think people are hearing reform that makes sense. So they're, you know, at a policy conference, or just what they read in the paper or see on TV. They're hearing reform that makes sense. I think as we go into year 2, and at the end of year 2, we have to start showing those results. So I think that's going to mean more students being on grade level in reading and math, more students attending school on a regular basis, and hopefully our enrollment increasing over the years to come. I think those are proof points that people will want to see to continue to build on the momentum of hope and reform that's leading to actual results rather than just reform for itself.
What about teachers? You've had an awfully tough job in terms of filling a lot of the teacher vacancies and also making sure that you have teacher retention, that people will want to stay in these jobs year after year. Talk to me about your recruitment process right now at the end of this year and how many vacancies you have and what you're looking forward to in the fall.
So right now we have 200 vacancies. Last year at this time we had 275, and we added 250 more classrooms because of the EA transition. So apples to apples, we've done a better job of recruiting, but very excited about going into this summer because we're fully recognizing experience outside of Detroit. We were facing extreme challenges with recruiting because we only recognize 2 years of experience outside of Detroit as far as pay. So now, in other words, we could have a teacher that's working in Garden City, 10 years of experience, we'll recognize that 10 for them coming into Detroit.
Well, here at Detroit Public Television, we had an announcement today. We are going to be having a new program on. Now, you know MiWeek is on Thursday nights at 7:30. That show is going to be replaced with a show called One Detroit, but don't panic. Nolan, Finley will still be there. Stephen Henderson will still all be there. What we're doing is we're kind of taking the show a little bit in a different way.
Same old sow's ear, if you will.
No. But what we're doing is we're actually going to be doing a lot more video stories, going into the neighborhoods, going into communities, and partnering with a lot of organizations and asking people what we should be covering and what we should be doing, and telling those in-depth stories.
Yeah. Expanding to an hour, too, right?
2 hours, Nolan. No, it's just still the half hour.
Just a half hour, right? Yeah. No, I think this is a sort of important step forward, but also sort of hearkening back to that original idea we had when we started MiWeek, this idea of an independent voice and broader context for the conversations that people are having.
And we'll be doing it with our One Detroit Bureau, so go ahead and take a look at what we're talking about.
Every day, 4 million of us get to work. We invent things, build things, fix things. Sure, we fight. And when it's us versus everybody, we're okay with that. We win together. And if we lose today, we'll bring it tomorrow. Detroit Public TV tells our story because every day that brings us closer is a good day. 4 million people, one story, one Detroit.
So in an era of fake news and alternative facts, one thing that really underpins what we do at Detroit Public Television and with One Detroit is trust. We, and through our affiliation with PBS, are consistently the most trusted source of news and information. So with all of the various facts and questionable facts, and with the pace of media and the pace of news happening so quickly, we are in a unique and special position to provide that trusted content, the information that our community and our region needs so desperately these days.
Our hope is to deeply understand where Detroit needs us and then to find ways to smartly partner with the entire community to tell that story. And it's turned into a mission for the entire station throughout our organization, from our production crew to our content team to leadership inside and across the organization. It's get invested in being part of this town in a whole new, unique, very energetic way, and listen, and listen, and listen to what we need to understand about our town and what we need to share with our community. So it feels important.
Finally tonight, you might wonder how we get a whole TV production up to an island that doesn't even allow cars. Well, we'll let the guys from Under the Radar Michigan explain how we do it.
Hello everyone, it's me, Tom Dalton, troubleshooter, danger seeker, and investigative reporter at this year's policy conference. Now, we all know it's a long-standing tradition that motorized vehicles are not allowed on Mackinac Island. Yet every year, Detroit Public Television does a stellar job of bringing the entire conference to all of us at home on our television sets. How do they do it? Well, I found out. They brought a truck! I'm here now with Brian Den, right? Did I say it right? All right, good. Right. Who's about to answer a couple of hard-hitting investigative questions about how did you get this truck onto the island?
Well, it all starts, we come over Memorial morning. So we wake up bright and early, before it's even light outside, to put this truck on a boat.
And the truck is actually hit in a super secret location that's right behind the, oh gosh, it's right behind a place here on the island. And how many people does it take to pull off this broadcast?
So inside the truck we have about 8 or 9 positions.
Plus you've got a whole host of people, producers, camera people inside the Grand Hotel actually making it happen too, right?
We do, they work really hard. So the pre-production actually starts months in advance, where they begin planning the conference and the content in which we're gonna air. Inside we have upwards of 9 to 10 cameras, all with a camera operator at each one. We have producers, we have lighting people, all to bring the production full circle.
And it must give you quite a feeling to be able to do this, I mean, to bring this policy conference to the public. I mean, if it wasn't for you guys in this truck, who knows what'd be going on in there?
Who knows? It could be a mystery to us all.
Yeah, but thanks to you, we all now know what goes on at the Mackinac Policy Conference. Wow, that's a lot of wires. I wonder what this one does.
Oh boy.
Well, that's going to do it for us. You can catch all of our coverage of the Mackinac Policy Conference at MiWeek.org. I'm Christy McDonald. We'll see you tomorrow from Mackinac Island.
I have a question. Who wants to go first? To win? Who wants to grow our business? Who wants to make more money? Who wants more job opportunities? If you want Michigan to compete and become a top 10 state, raise your hand. Together, we've turned Michigan around and started moving forward. Now help us build a stronger Michigan than ever. Raise your hand at strongermichigan.com.
Masco Corporation is proud to manufacture innovative and environmentally friendly products for the home. Delta faucets, craft-made in Maryland cabinets, and Behr brand paints have all been designed with you in mind. Masco and its family of companies, serving Michigan communities since 1929.